Hey friends, this is Lauren Taylor. Thanks for joining me in my craft room today. I'm so grateful to have you here for a Pretty Pink Posh project video. I'm going to be sharing how I made a box card featuring the brand new Sweet Chocolate stamp set and coordinating dies and bringing in last year's release of the layered chocolate stencils. I have my sentiment strip dies, which is a staple for almost every project that I make, as well as the scallop box card dies. I did put those two dies on my own magnets, so they do not come that way, but it's a great way to just make sure everything is organized and staying flat in my packaging. I'm going to begin with stenciling because I'm going to do a little bit of stencil paste. I started with die cutting all of the scallop pieces from the box card dies, and I'm using some waffle flower grip mats and stencil supplies to keep my cardstock in place while I use my layered chocolate stencils from Pretty Pink Posh. I'm just using my stencil as a guide to make sure I get all of my die cut pieces placed behind the stencil, and I'm starting with Stencil A, which has the solid all of the different pieces of chocolates. I'm going to bring in my Distress ink in ground espresso and a blending brush, but I'm going to go in with a very light hand to create a softer brown to add in all of those little chocolate details. This is going to be the background pieces of my box card, so I didn't want it to be too busy. That way my chocolates that I will stamp and color later will really stand up and off of the box card. So here we're going to reveal our first layer, and you can see all those fun chocolate shapes. And then I'm going to bring in the B stencil. I like to layer my A stencil on top of the next one so I can line up where the next layer needs to go, since I don't really have a set place of how I laid down my first stencil. For the second layer, the B stencil, I'm bringing in aged mahogany. I want to give a raspberry chocolate look to the little details on the B stencil. So again, I'm bringing in my Distress ink and a blending brush and tapping off the ink before I apply it through the stencil, so it's not a harsh line but has a soft pinky chocolate detail to this layer. And then I will bring in the final layer, Stencil C, which has kind of the sprinkles. And for this one, I'm going to bring in chocolate stencil butter from the Crafter's Workshop, which I think actually looks like chocolate pudding. It definitely looks like chocolate. So I have a little palette knife, and I'm going to scoop some of the stencil butter out and apply it over the stencil just where those little sprinkles are, and it overlaps my scalloped pieces of cardstock, and then I'll give it a good swipe and then add that excess back into my jar. Here's our final stencil reveal, which is my favorite part, and I love all of these details, these cute little chocolates on my vanilla colored cardstock. I'm going to peel these off and set them aside in this little tray so that way the stencil butter and all of the ink dries while I clean up my stencils, as I don't want that stencil butter to stay on too long, and I also clean up my desk. I've already stamped and die cut all of the chocolates from the brand new Sweet Chocolate stamp set, and I use the coordinating dies to die cut them out. I stamped them in a black ink that is alcohol marker friendly, and I'm using my Ohuhu art markers. I like the Honolulu markers, and I prefer the B, so that way I have a nib and brush tip to be able to color in my images. For the dark chocolate, the darkest browns that I'm going to be using for my chocolates, I started with Y13 as my darker tone, and I'm bringing in Y12 to fully color in the rest of the image. I'm making sure to do my best to blend between the two colors so that way they have a nice dark chocolate look. For my more milky chocolate, so the lighter brown of all of my chocolates, I'm going to start with E310, and very similar to my first chocolate, I'm going to just do an outline of where I think the darkest areas of this candy would be, and then I'll bring in my second color, which for this one is E170, and fully color in the rest of my image. Again, I do my best to overlap with my darker color to try to really blend it together and give it a, a shadow look towards the edge of my image, and then a little bit lighter more towards the center. After I finish off my dark and milk chocolate, we have to have a little bit of white chocolate. So I'm going to grab WG01 to be the darker color, and I'm going to color in this little cute little bonbon or truffle that I think this one looks like, and I want it to be a white chocolate dipped one with cute little pink details. So then for the lighter color, I'm bringing WG 0.5 in, and again overlapping that darker shadow and then coloring in the rest of the image. Now the next color, I wanted to bring in kind of a deep raspberry or deep redishy purple. So I'm going to color my two chocolates that have wrappers on them, starting with R350 as the darker tone, and again I'm going to go along the sides and bottom, anywhere where I think shadow would be on these wrappers, and then I brought in R340 as the lighter color and coloring in the rest of the image, doing my best to really extend that shadow and blend it so it looks a little more natural, like I have a light source towards the front center of my chocolates. For the final color, I'm going to bring in a more pinkishy red color combination. So I'm starting with R290, and I'm going to color in the heart on the top of this little chocolate, and then the lighter color is R280. So I'll go ahead and finish coloring the rest of these images and the little details, and I also brought in my white gel pen to add some highlights and also color anywhere I went outside of the lines. Here's a little close-up of how cute these little chocolates turned out, and again I'll grab a little tray to set these in, doing my best not to smear all of that white gel pen work I just did, and I'll set those aside while I finish my die cutting. I die cut the rest of my scallop box card dies out of some kind of raspberry reddish pink cardstock. I did my best to kind of match the details that I made on my stenciled chocolates and colored in with my alcohol markers. I really wanted everything to coordinate with this brown and raspberry red colors for this project. I'm adding some strong adhesive to the back of my arch scalloped die cut, and I'm adding that to the center panel of my box card. I flipped it over and I'm adding these little trapezoid pieces, which are the sides of my box cards, on the outside. And then I'll add the rectangle pieces to my two little, I call them like stair steppers, my little shelves that I'm going to use to attach my sentiment as well as my chocolates. I'm actually going to die cut one more of these later on, but I'm not going to add any scalloped images because I'm going to use it to tuck in some acetate for a couple of my chocolates that you will see later on in the video. I'm peeling off some of the backing of my adhesive that I added to the 4 tabs of my 2 little shelf pieces, and I'm adding these to the left side. So I'm adding my first one, which will close up my box card, to the edge of the left side piece. And then I will add the second little shelf, which will hold some of my chocolates, towards the center of the left side, as that's the side that I peeled off the release paper. And once those are in place, I'll repeat that on the other side. So I'll peel off the release paper for that double-sided adhesive that I added to the little tabs, and then I will fold my box card closed so it's fully a box now. I'm going to go ahead and really reinforce those score lines. I use a nice thick cardstock to cut these pieces out, so it's a nice sturdy little box card. I'm going to work on placing my chocolates next, but I did use a thinner piece of cardstock. It's an alcohol marker friendly cardstock. So I die cut all of my little chocolates again out of some white cardstock, and I'm going to glue them together just so there's a little bit more stability for these pieces, as a couple of them are going to be added with acetate, and I want to make sure they're nice and sturdy on the card. I'm going to start gluing my first set of candies that will be on my little shelf, the middle piece on my box card, and then I will show you how I kind of just do a dry run. But once I'm happy with what chocolates are going to go where, I'll start grabbing that liquid adhesive and gluing them in place. So I have my cute little heart one. I think that one's my favorite. So I'm going to have it front and center on my box card. And then I will add one of my chocolates that has a wrapper on the shelf towards the left, and then that little square white chocolate candy on my shelf to the right. Next, I'm going to take two of the chocolates and I'm just going to glue them to the back top of my arch on the back of my box card. There is quite a bit of space you could see there of where the other two chocolates will be, but I wanted to put them onto some acetate so it looks kind of like they're floating behind that row of three chocolates. So I die cut another little shelf piece and I added adhesive to the two little tabs, and I'm just going to slide this right into my box card. No one's going to see it, so I just put it in there as straight as I could get it, but I didn't really worry too much about it as it is hidden between my middle shelf piece and the backing of my box card. Next, I have a 1/2 inch piece of acetate that I just cut in half. It has really long pieces, again, that are 1/2 inch wide. I just wanted to cut long enough pieces to glue or attach my two little chocolates to, and then I will figure out placement of the acetate and trim off the excess so I can see where I want my chocolate to be, and that way I know how long I need my acetate piece to be. So I just made a little mark with my scissors and then fully trimmed off the excess acetate, adding a couple pieces of adhesive. I will peel off the release paper and then get that tucked on the back side of that little shelf stabilizer piece that I added. I'm going to go ahead and press that into place and make sure that adhesive sticks to the cardstock, and then I will add my second chocolate the exact same way. So now I have all 7 of my little chocolates on my box card. I love that they're kind of floating and they stack kind of like a stadium seating of all of my chocolates on this box card. My sentiment is going to go on the front, so I use my sentiment strip dies. I cut out a banner out of some dark brown cardstock, and I cut one of the sentiment strips out of cream cardstock, and I'm stamping Life Is with that same brown ink that I used for stenciling, and then I'm stamping the word sweet from the sweet chocolate stamp set with the same red ink that I stenciled with on cream cardstock as well, and the die set for the stamps of the coordinating dies has sweet on its own, which I absolutely love. I love when sentiments have their own little die, and I went ahead and die cut that out. I'm going to layer my strip that says Life Is onto the brown banner die cut first. I'm going to do my best to make sure that is centered, and then I will adhere sweet right next to Life Is so I get my sentiment Life Is Sweet. Once I have all of those layered together, I'll go ahead and add some adhesive to the back of my banner, and I'm going to attach that to the front of my box card. So I have a fun little sentiment that really just matches so well with my chocolates and my stenciled background. I wanted to add a little bit more shine to the card, so I'm going to grab some espresso confetti mix and I'm going to pour them into a little container, and I'll use a wax tip pickup tool to pick up the confetti pieces and add them with liquid adhesive around the box card. I'm adding them where I think the card receiver will still be able to see them when they open up the box card, and I'll also add a few on the sides of the box card as well and around the sentiment. Once I'm happy with all of the placement, I'll go ahead and put my confetti mix away and set my glue aside so I can show you a close-up of this Life Is Sweet chocolate box card. I hope you enjoyed this process and that you're loving this color scheme. I love the deep colors with the light and dark shades of brown, and I absolutely love that these new stamps coordinate so perfectly with the layered chocolate stencils that was released last year. Let me know in the comments which one of these chocolates you would be grabbing for if you had this box of adorable little chocolates. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!